Hi there, I'm Carla, and I wanted to do an updated review on IEW. I have been using it with my kids, both my 3rd and 6th grader, for just over a year now, and I have several other videos that I did when we first were getting into the program. But I thought it's nice to do one because sometimes what can happen is you will purchase a new curriculum and you think, hallelujah, this is it. Like, this is great. It will solve all my homeschool problems and I'll probably eat better because I'm using it too. So, and then you get into it and realize that perhaps it's not everything that you thought it was. So I thought, after we've used it for a while and we've implemented it in our home, I wanted to go ahead and share what I think of it and how my kids like it and how we've kind of implemented it into other areas as well. So my goal in our homeschool had always been to have the subject of writing be something that we could incorporate into whatever else we were learning about, be it some, writing with some nature journaling or a science project or doing some writing about whatever the topic we were learning about in history. And I think that was an excellent goal. But what I found is that I had these ideas that we could do this project, and it just wasn't going very smoothly. My daughter was wanting a lot of help, and I'd be like, oh, let's write a newspaper article about the ancient Greeks. And she's like, what do I even say? And so we needed something, which is why I had turned to IEW, and it's a very structured program, but it has been exactly what we needed. And so she worked through the Student Writing Intensive, the DVD set that you purchase, and we did lots of projects out of there, and we finished that up. We worked through the first 7 units, 7 out of 9 units. The units 8 and 9 are for a little bit older kids. So we did all of that. And the change in our writing in our homeschool has been just remarkable. It took this super structured program to give us the tools that we needed to be able to do these more fun and creative writing projects. The structure has actually led to more creativity because both she and I have tools. When I would say pre-IEW, okay, let's do, I'd like you to write a paragraph on, a topic, or let's do a newspaper article. Like, she just didn't know how to take all this information that we'd been discussing and reading and learning about and funnel it down into something that she could write about. And I can do it, but I didn't know how to explain the steps, how to break it down into bite-sized pieces. And that has been a huge game changer because IEW has given us those steps. Each unit builds on the next one, and my personally favorite units are 4 and 6 because they teach the student and you as the parent how to take a large amount of information and narrow it down to the most important and the most interesting facts. And I think now that I have that language and my daughter has that language, when we go to do a project, then we have steps that we can take in order to complete something. For example, we are just finishing up a unit study on the Middle Ages, and pre-IEW, now granted she's a year older, so that of course plays into it as well, but if I had asked her before we'd gone through the program to read some information and just sit down and write me a paragraph, that would have been really overwhelming for her. So, but now that we have some steps, we can break it down into daily bite-sized chunks and she can do it. So for example, in the Middle Ages, she's been reading, and we've been talking about this little book here. So, this is an Usborne book. There's some nice amount of information. So she'd read a little bit about that and we'd talk about it. I was doing stuff with my other kids as well. And I wanted her to do a writing project to tie it all in. So I found this nice article here. Not a ton of information, but it kind of took what we'd already been learning about. And she read it. And I said, okay, now I would like you to write a paragraph on the feudal system. And a year ago that would have been super overwhelming for her, but now we had some steps. She's like, okay, so there's more here that I can, I want to regurgitate. And I said, no problem. So, kind of in unit 4 and 6, we learned our steps. And so she was able to sit down, and I assisted her with this portion of it. And we kind of came up with our keyword outline. And so we talked about, I kind of gave some suggestions to help her get it organized, and then she plunked in, the keywords. So we did that. And this is probably the hardest step, because you're getting, your facts that you want, and you're putting them in the order you want. And once you've done that, the writing really isn't that hard. So she did this, and we did that probably over a day or two. And then over the course of the following week, she was able to write her article, her little paragraph here on the feudal system. And it was really well done. And then she does type, but it's still a little bit of a slow process. So I typed this up for her, and we did any of our editing and corrections. We did it on the computer, because nobody likes to have their hard work, scratched out and stuff. So we do all of our editing on the computer. And voila, we had a very nice little project that tied into what we were learning about. And that was always my end goal, but we didn't have the tools to execute it. And now it's still hard. It wasn't like that was completely easy for her. She worked at it, but I felt like I could support her with, oh, remember to do this, or don't forget this step, without actually just doing it for her, which was kind of what was happening before, is that she didn't really know what to do. I didn't know how to break it down. So I was like, well, why didn't you say this? And it ended up being a lot of my work. So this has been really excellent. Some other examples of how we've taken, what we learned through the student writing intensive and then applied into our homeschool is in unit 3, they go over what is called the story sequence chart. And that was probably one of the trickier units, but how it's translated into our lives has been great. We keep, as Sarah McKenzie recommends from the Read Aloud Revival, my daughter keeps a reading journal. So all the books that she reads, she records and puts the date and just writes a little something about it. She also does a quote from each book. And so, and it's just, a little bit, like this section would be for one book, but that what she learned through the IEW was really helpful in her doing this, because it, once again, is the skill of summarizing, and that's not an easy thing to do. And so, when we first started doing this, she needed some help, which I was happy to do, but now she can sit down and do that independently, which to me is huge. She can read a book that she's enjoyed, and in 2 to 3 sentences, kind of highlight maybe what the main conflict was, how it resolved itself, and something that she liked about the book. And so once again, I think it's helped us, the skills we've learned we're using in other ways that are making it really relevant for her. So that's one thing that we do. The unit 7 in IEW is kind of more creative writing, instead of, reading something and writing about what you learned, taking, from personal experience and writing about it. And that has been really helpful for her in her journal. We keep a journal, we have since about 4th grade, and she writes in it about once a month, at least once a month is my goal. This is not a daily journal or a diary. It's kind of a record of her writing that we've had since 4th grade. And I don't correct spelling for the most part. I'll say, oh, maybe there's this one word that you've, consistently done wrong that's key to the understanding of your entry. But other than that, it's just her writing, and she picks, kind of one thing for that month that we put a picture in it and that she writes about. And once again, it has been so helpful because she has some skills now. So, here's an example from her journal. Like I said, we pick a picture, and this was her and her friend had done overnight camp out on their own. So that was kind of fun. Don't worry, we were nearby. But anyways, and so then she puts her picture and she just does, some writing about it. And so once again, the skills that she learned in Unit 7 have really given her some tools and some steps, because I think it's easy to forget for kids when we say, go find something to write about from last month. Like, what the heck? Where did they even start with that? And so I think that, this helps them pick a topic and then think through some steps. Sometimes if she's really stuck, we'll even do just a little outline on a sticky note or something. Just, okay, here's how you could organize it. And then she goes off and does the writing. And I think it's a great way to support our kids in their writing without actually doing it for them. And that is a tricky balance, in my opinion. So, yeah, these are just a few ways for my daughter in 6th grade that we've taken what we've learned and really implemented it into our homeschool. All right, so forgive me, but I have just one more thing that I want to show you, but I'm hoping that by giving you these examples of how we have incorporated writing into different subjects, it makes you excited and gives you some ideas and hope that it can be done, because it was a struggle for us too, and now it really is a whole lot better. And so anyways, another thing that we've used from learning the steps of how to take information and break it down has been in my daughter's science program. Right now, we're just using Apologia, and that's been working really well. And for each chapter, she does some kind of, each chapter in the science book talks about, one particular area. And so then I've asked her to do some type of project. And so for this chapter, we've been doing birds, the flying creatures, and it was all about birds' nests. And she did this completely independently, and I was so tickled because that was the goal. So anyways, this was all about different nests. So we have the bower nest, the weaver, the no nester, and she went through and had read her chapter. I helped her find some examples of pictures, and she just wrote a little summary of each of these type of nests, and it turned out so nicely, and she was so proud of herself. And it just really took the information she'd learned in her science, and when you write about something, you just know it and understand it so much better. So once again, we're putting it into our science as well. But I wanted to say too that when we do this writing, either her, her journal or her reading journal, or she wrote about the bird's nest, that is our writing. We are not doing more writing on top of that. That would be way too much. And so, the day that she does a journal entry, that's her writing project for the day. And we don't do, something from IEW. That is her writing. And I think that's important to remember, that you can kind of kill two birds with one stone with, a little science project and some writing. That's both things. You don't have to keep your subjects all separate. Once again, this video got longer than I intended, but as you can see, I'm just so excited and so passionate about what we've been able to accomplish in our homeschool this year. And my daughter feels good, and I feel good. And it's not that she's doing everything on her own. I'm still there and supporting her, but I just feel so much more equipped, and she does as well, for me to be able to help her and remind her, and for her to have some tools. And that's how IEW has really worked so fantastically for us and our family, because I really did want writing to be a part of everything we were doing, and I didn't know how to get us there. And so that is what it has done, and I couldn't be more thrilled about it. Like I said, if we do writing, to tie in with our science, or she's updating her reading journal, whatever it is, that's her writing for that day. And that's not to say that we won't continue with some of the IEW materials. For example, she has we've been starting working through the Canadian history themed IEW book for a little bit older grades, and it's fantastic. I really like it, but we don't feel tied to it. We'll do a project, and some of them are a little longer. It is for older kids, so sometimes we'll spread something out over 2 weeks. And then if we've come to the point where she needs to update her journal, or we want to stop and write about what we're doing in history, then we just put the themed IEW stuff away for that week or two and work on our other things, and then we go back to it. And I am so thrilled with that. I don't feel like we have to keep up on a certain schedule with these themed books, but it's really nice to have them on those weeks where I don't have a project in mind. So it just helps us be consistent in our writing and, you know, getting her to do things on a regular basis without me always having to come up with something. But it's nice to have a little flexibility and switch it up. And so my plan is we'll use the Canadian history book over a couple of years, and that'll be perfect. And that gives us flexibility, and I'm not feeling stressed like we need to, you know, push on through. Since this went a little longer than I'd planned, I will do a separate, shorter video on how we've taken the things that we've learned in IEW and I've used them for my 3rd grade son, and how we've kind of worked that into our homeschool as well. But basically, in summary, if you haven't figured out already, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled with the IEW program, the skills that we've learned, you know, going through the student writing intensive, the DVD program was fantastic for us. I also had gotten all the teacher materials because I love that kind of thing. But like I've said before, I don't think you have to get them. You could, you know, just go through the student writing intensive and I think be perfectly fine. But we did both because this is kind of my thing, and it has been wonderful. We have had our best year of writing ever, and I couldn't be more pleased with what we've done. So thanks for watching, and hopefully you are inspired to do some fun writing things with your kids as well. Bye-bye.